Hey there, Ride the Car Guy here, and let's get this transmission wrapped up and ready to go back in the Titan. There's just a couple things we need to accomplish today. Hopefully this will be a not 40-minute video. We just need to put the converter housing back on. Then we're gonna do our filter and gasket change. And then I decided that I'm actually gonna drop the fluid out of the transfer and then, well, probably not fill it back up, but I'll show you how to, of course. And then get this thing down on the floor, slid under, and ready to go into the Titan. Starting with our converter housing, just get your bolts back out, and you'll notice that there are 3 bolts that aren't like the rest. It's kind of strange. So there's 8 bolts, 3 of them are like a little bit darker, and those 3 went in the bottom. And in the manual, it says there is something called a self-sealing bolt, and it goes into this spot here. What's strange about that is I took my inspection camera, because it's dark in there, and I even got a little flashlight, but I looked in there and it's the exact same type of bolt hole as every other one. So I'm not exactly sure what it is. It says not to reuse the bolt, but I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm gonna just throw some thread sealant in these bottom 3 and then just put them down to spec. The self-sealing bolt, the one in this spot, they're saying is 45 foot-pounds, and then the rest is 38. You can't really misalign this, but you have your starter at the top, your, what's it called, crank position sensor at the bottom, and you have your bolts that literally just can't be screwed in wrong. So grab that, line it up, and drop in a couple just to hold it. There we go. The thread sealant I'm using is the same that I used in the block for the antifreeze, and they tell you to not put it on the exact leading thread, but put it on about 3/4 of the threads, starting near the top, but not at the very top, you know, which I just did, whatever. And you don't have to go crazy on this stuff either, but it holds up to like a, you know, like a bajillion PSI or whatever. So I'm not too worried about any issues. All right, cool, there you go. Close enough. And I'm gonna do it the bottom 3, all 3 that had the orange sealant on it originally when I pulled them out. I cleaned out as much of the sealant as I could from the threads in the actual transmission. Again, I have no idea why these are in here, but you know, it is what it is. All right, this one to 45 and the rest to 38. And in fact, if you're doing this job and you happen to know why that one's a different bolt, needs to be sealed, needs to go to 45, certainly let us know down below in the comments. But I'm just gonna put it the way it says to do it. Now I know this seems a bit excessive, you know, making sure I do all this finagling just to get to the bottom of this, but frankly, I hate working on my back. So if I can avoid it, I'm gonna avoid it. So we have access to this now. Those are probably 10 millimeter. There's gonna be a bunch of bolts. We're gonna drop those bolts, slowly lower the pan, and there should be a filter in there that we can swap out. So let's go do that. All right, so this is a bit curious because we're starting to get a lot of fluid dripping from the seal as I'm loosening it. And it's making me wonder if maybe when I moved it back and forth, if I put a lot more fluid into the pan. So what I might do while there's still a lot of screws left is actually pop the drain plug out and make sure we got the last of the fluid out. 19 mil, there we go. Break that loose. Just check what we have in here. Oh, okay. Substantially more fluid. Yo, did I not drain this? Wait a second. Well, I may not have drained this. How is that possible? Okay, cool. I gotta empty this and keep going then. I could have sworn video 1 that I drained this thing. Am I dreaming? All right, that'll suffice. Now back to pulling it off. All right, I had to go back and watch the video because I could have sworn my life that I drained this, and it turns out I did. So it must have been literally from moving it up and down, back and forth, rolling it around a little bit, that it brought the rest of that fluid into the pan. Because it only got probably a quart, maybe a quart and a half. So makes sense, but that's fine. I left 2 bolts in, the front and the rear, and I'm just gonna remove those while kind of supporting it, so that way it doesn't just drop, and that's it. Then we'll drop it and pull out the filter. All right, there's one. Hold on to it and then go to the other, which is where? Right here. There. Oh shit, still where the hell is all this fluid coming from? All right, I know we've talked about this, about me not really knowing much about automatic transmissions. You guys saw me, I just pulled the drain plug out and this drain pan is completely full again. Look at this. I don't really understand where all this fluid's coming from. So I'm gonna grab a funnel, empty this out, and then we'll look underneath it. All right, it makes sense now. The drain, when this is in its sort of natural state, The drain plug is actually a little higher up, so that's why it didn't drain the fluid that was in the pan, so that's fine. But we have our magnets here, and I found something quite interesting that I want to show you. Let me get the camera moved. All right, this might be hard to see because it's highly reflective, but here's our magnets. We're going to wipe those off in a minute and take a look at how much grit's on them. I can already tell you it's not much, especially for 200,000 miles, but that right there, that is interesting because to me, that looks like antifreeze. Now, if you remember going way back, I talked about when we were disassembling the engine, I wanted to bypass the transmission cooler that is part of the radiator. Nissan, in their infinite wisdom, literally blended the radiator and transmission cooler into one unit. In the Xterra, it was a catastrophe. It kept blowing up people's transmissions because they would blend the antifreeze with the transmission fluid. You don't hear about it very commonly in the Titan, if at all, really. But to me, that for sure looks like antifreeze is making it into the transmission via that radiator. If we look up a little bit and we turn it to where it was installed, check out where the antifreeze is in relation to the top of the transmission. Right here is our transmission cooler lines. So after 220,000 miles, is that really a big deal? No, it's not. But it is a sign that the fluid is getting mixed in, and it is the last thing that we want. So add it to the list. When we go back in to finish up the engine, I'm going to go ahead and bypass that. All right, let's take a look at our magnets. Oh, well, again, not terrible for how many miles. It's a heck of a lot better than our transfer case was, that's for sure. All right, I'm gonna clean up this pan. Let's also take off our gasket here so we don't forget. Ooh, that thing is on there. Holy moly. Oh, don't do this. No, oh, great. It's gonna come off in pieces. This transmission just really wants to fight me, huh? But I ain't gonna let it win. All right, this is gonna take forever. I'll be back. So we're ready to start backing off. I went through and got what I think are all the torque specs. All right, bros, fuming mad, change of plans. I'm not doing this. So here's why. This here, that is not a stud. That is a freaking bolt that is loose on the top side, that's dropped in from the top side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cleverly find a way to, I'll probably use needle nose pliers and hold on to the stud while I tighten it back up. I'll just take a look with my camera, my inspection camera, and see how bad the filter is. All right, I got it back in. Let's go grab my inspection camera. I'm not gonna do this. If the filter looks halfway decent, I'm not doing it. My patience for this is gone, guys. I'm just gonna look in here. I'm gonna be very gentle so I don't puncture it, but the screen looks honestly really clean. If my last video taught me anything, it's don't go too far. So I'm just gonna grab the bolts I took out, reassemble it, filter's fine. Let's move on. All right, well, let's put it back in. And after thinking about it, on the bright side, you know, I'm so glad we took this down. The magnets needed to be cleaned. We needed to put a new gasket on, and I found that little, those antifreeze little pools down there as well. So I'm glad I did it, but now we're gonna get our new gasket, put it back on. The manual says that the bolts are not reusable and that they're self-sealing, but I went online to go purchase some, and they no longer exist. You can't buy them. I'm just gonna reuse them, and it says self-sealing, so I'm assuming it's just like thread locker or something. So I'll throw some thread locker in each one before putting it in, and then, you know, obviously, you know, get it up and secure it. I'm just gonna make one more quick pass all the way around, make sure that there's no pieces of that paper gasket left, and then go grab my new gasket and get it set on here. The new one is rubber, which is a better choice in my opinion. Also, took my bolts and I cleaned them. I just went out and kind of made like a backyard parts washer, threw them in a water bottle, and shook them around with some super clean. Grab our gasket, we'll get it lined up. It has little, it's sort of keyed. There's little holes that line up on 2 of the 4 corners, so you know that you have it on the right way. As far as ordering, they want you to, they said partially install in a crisscross pattern, and then tighten in a specific order, and of course I'll put that on the screen. To get it basically suspended, we want to just get the threads in, a couple threads on each one, and you can push through, and the gasket will actually hold on to your bolts as well. So I'm gonna do that with a few of them just to line everything up. All right, so a few bolts are in there and it lines up the holes. And what's nice is the threads are actually available. You can see them all on the top. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get everything partially installed like they said, with just a couple threads in holding everything in. And then I'm just gonna drop a little drop of thread locker into each one of these before I cinch them all down. All right, let's get it installed. Get one from the other side. Nice. Well, that was pretty easy. Just suspended it with one hand and then spun in the bolts with the other. And then I'm just gonna grab my little 10 mil and just go around and put them all in. Make sure they all line up, and then we'll start dropping in that thread locker. All right, so the oil pan is up. It looks good. I'm happy with it. And now we're gonna go back to the transfer or the transfer case here, and we're gonna drain the oil out of it. Now this drain and fill is gonna be like any other drain and fill, right? It's gonna be just like a transmission or a differential. We just have our drain plug here, our fill plug here. This is an H10, and we always wanna make sure that we can crack open our fill plug before we go and open the drain plug, right? In case something wonky happens, we need to make sure we can actually fill it back up. Now the fluid that's currently in here is horrible, so that's why I'm pulling it out, but let's see here. There we go. So we know that that opens, so let's crack this loose. Woo! And I'm gonna grab a pan and tilt it up against this drain plug and then just pull it out. All right. Ooh, that's black. I'm no expert, but I don't think it's supposed to be that liquidy. Yikes. All right, so we're gonna clean this all up, and then we're gonna reinstall our drain plug with a new washer. And then, well, before we do that, we also need to clean up our drain plug. So let me show you that. Here are the shavings, and I'll get a close-up shot of this. There's quite a bit on here, but again, based on the fluid, this has never been touched in 220,000 miles. So I'm going to just clean this all up, get it reinstalled. After looking at it, it actually, you know, I think that the front diff was actually worse. There's not nearly as much stuff on here as there was on the front. So there it is, all cleaned up. Clean off this surface as well, make sure it's nice and spiffy. And then this goes in at 26 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna fill this up later. You need this fluid and this much to put it in. And when you do fill it up, you just like fill to spill, if you will. My potent didn't know it. But fill it up, it starts to pour out, then wait 3 minutes, and then make sure you top it off until it starts to pour out again, and then tighten it back up. Now, if it's underneath the truck, you can get a liquid transfer pump where you just literally put the little motorized pump in to your fluid and then pump it up into the transmission, or excuse me, in this case, the transfer case. Or of course, if it's out, just get a funnel with a hose and you can just drop it in that way, quick and easy. Now we got one thing left I want to tackle for this video, and that's going to be pulling off this dust cover, pulling off the rear seal, and replacing it, because this one was leaking all over the place. So let's knock that out and get this thing finished. Now this guy here is not the seal, this is a dust cover. So we need to take that off. I'm gonna grab, what am I gonna grab? I don't know, something kind of blunt. There we go. I'm just using the side of a pair of pliers and just setting the side in there. Just trying to create something that, again, just isn't sharp. Woo, there we go. Nice. Minimal damage on it, just a little bit there, but the actual ring that cinches it on is okay, so that's fine. Next up, we want to pull this seal out. I have a seal puller. I don't know how that's gonna go. Let's grab the seal puller and see what happens. Here's my little seal puller, and you want to use these very gently. I did actually scrape up the mating surface on my Xterra rear main seal. I just got lucky, and it didn't hurt anything. So I'm gonna feed this back here, see if I can get some leverage on the seal. Yeah, looks like I can. There it goes. Excellent. Woo! That was very simple. Obviously broke the seal, but who cares? That's the bad one. And did I do any damage? I did not. Yeehaw. So there's our output shaft, obviously, from the transfer. We got to find something that's going to go around this. Ew, actually, how am I going to do that? Didn't even think about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to wipe it down. And it wants you to apply petroleum jelly again. So look at that. Petroleum jelly's back. Let's grab the new one. It's kind of lame, but it occurred to me they probably mean apply the jelly here on the inside. These come pre-lubricated. They don't mean it on the outside, but that's okay. Let's grab this, line it up. I think it's beveled on the outside to make it a little bit easier. Okay, instantly cockeyed, very cool. Let's even it out a little bit. There we go. All right, So now that it's even, I am gonna grab my old seal and I'm gonna lay the old seal on top of the new one. And I have an oil filter wrench that fits perfectly on that. So what I'm gonna do is use that to drive these in. That actually might be a bad idea, hold on. No, it's not a bad idea, I got this. There we go. I love it. I'm gonna grab something a little heftier than my dead blow because the old seal is kind of acting as a cushion already. There we go. If we start to get misaligned, you can just kind of look around and see where the misalignment is. Start hammering it straight. There we go. That looks good. Getting close to maxing out this little setting I have here. Very cool. It's actually going pretty well. Hey. That's not bad at all. Heck yeah. That is really not bad, guys. I think I crushed it. It wants to be flush. So if you just sort of like look down and you can kind of see if it's protruding at all. And if you actually had a seal driver, you would actually hear a difference like when you're hitting it. But we'll survive, right? It's all right. So I'm just gonna go around, get a few more love taps here, make sure it's fully seated, and that job is done. All right, next I'm gonna take my dust boot, give that a good clean. There is a little alignment marker. You want this on the top, and because there's a little like weep hole and stuff on the bottom as well, so you wanna throw that on that way. And gosh, I don't know how we're gonna do that. Maybe find another filter wrench. Oh, heck yeah, I got really lucky. A 76 millimeter oil filter wrench, which I happen to have lying around, sits right on the sealing surface, right on this inside ring, so heck yeah. So I'm gonna clean up. I already cleaned up the oil seal. I'm just gonna give this one more wipe here, grab the seal, put it in the correct way here, which is just the hole at the bottom, really. There we go. Get my oil filter wrench, or socket, whatever you wanna call it. Give that the what for. Okay, so I got it aligned. However, the distance is too great, meaning I'm hitting the output shaft with the center of this before I get the distance I need. But let me think of something. I don't think that's gonna work. You know, I'm just gonna gently rotate it on, or go in a circular motion. Again, this is not really a sealing surface, right? This is a dust cover, so I'm not super duper concerned about it. Good enough? Done. All right, I'm happy to be saying this, but I'm calling this thing ready to go back into the Titan. I'm gonna leave the actual mount off, so putting it in is gonna be a little bit easier. I have that nice flat surface to deal with right here. And then once it's in and supported on the engine, I'm just going to slap that in last second. Here's the torque spec for it. And then obviously throw in that cross member to put it back together. So I'm not gonna show that process. It's very similar to the Xterra that I did. So if you wanna watch that, it's gonna be right there. And that's pretty much it. So now we get to go back to our regular series, right? Of putting the engine back in and getting it running. So next up is gonna be, it's technically part 12. This is sort of an offshoot. So part 12 is gonna be getting the engine put back in and starting to get it put back together. Please stick around for that. Subscribe to make sure you get notified for when that comes out. Scroll down, like this video if you liked it. If it saved you some time or money, you can also send me a super thanks by clicking the thanks button down below. And that's it, guys. We'll see you in the next one.